My name is Grace Anderson, and I'm 32 years old. For 5 years, I've been sending my family $3,000 every month while they told everyone I'd never be as successful as my doctor brother. What they didn't know was that I wasn't just an accountant counting pennies in some back office. The truth about who I really was and the power I held over my brother's entire career would come out at the worst possible moment for them, his promotion party in front of 200 witnesses. When they humiliated me one last time, I didn't just cut them off financially. I did something that would change the entire family dynamic forever. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This is a story about setting boundaries with the people who should love you most, but somehow can't see your worth. The grand ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton downtown had never looked more impressive. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables dressed in crisp white linens, each centerpiece featuring fresh orchids that probably cost more than what most people spent on groceries in a week. 200 guests filled the space, doctors in designer suits, hospital board members with their glittering wives, and medical students looking both inspired and intimidated by the success surrounding them. At the center of it all stood my brother, Dr. Michael Anderson, looking every inch the successful surgeon in his custom-tailored Tom Ford suit. At 38, he'd just become the youngest department chief in St. Mary's Hospital's history. The banner behind the main stage proclaimed it in bold gold letters. Celebrating Dr. Michael Anderson, Excellence in Leadership. I sat at table 19, nearly at the back, close to the service entrance. The seating arrangement wasn't accidental. While Michael's colleagues and the hospital board filled the front tables, I'd been placed with distant relatives and plus ones whose names no one quite remembered. My simple black dress from Ann Taylor looked almost apologetic next to the designer gowns floating past. "Grace, sweetie, could you move your chair a bit?" Aunt Linda asked, squeezing past me. "I want to get a better photo of Michael when he gives his speech." I shifted without comment, watching my parents work the room. Mom, in her new St. John's suit that Michael had bought her, glowed as she accepted congratulations. Dad, distinguished in his navy blazer, kept his hand on Mom's back, both of them radiating pride. They hadn't looked my way once since the brief, obligatory hug at the entrance. "Your brother is really something," the woman next to me gushed. She was someone's date, I think. "Your parents must be over the moon. Do you work in medicine too?" "No," I said simply. "I work with numbers." She gave me that look, the one I'd seen 1,000 times. That mixture of pity and dismissal, as if I'd just admitted to being a disappointment. "Oh, well, that's practical." I took a sip of water, noticing several familiar faces in the crowd. Not familiar from family gatherings, but from somewhere else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant about tomorrow's board meeting, but I tucked it away. There would be time for that revelation later. Michael stepped up to the podium, tapping the microphone. The room fell silent, all eyes on the golden child. But they didn't know what was coming. None of them knew that the quiet woman in the back held the keys to everything he was celebrating tonight. As Michael began his speech, my mind drifted back to that pivotal moment 10 years ago. I could still see the disappointment in my father's eyes when I told them I'd chosen accounting over medicine. "Accounting?" Mom had repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "But Grace, we always thought, I mean, with your grades, you could have gotten into any medical school." "I don't want to be a doctor, Mom. I'm good with numbers. I actually enjoy—" "Enjoyment doesn't pay bills," Dad had interrupted. "Look at Michael. He's building a real career, something meaningful, saving lives, Grace. What does accounting offer? Sitting in a cubicle, calculating other people's success?" That was the moment I became invisible in my own family. Every achievement after that, graduating summa cum laude, landing a job at a Fortune 500 company, my first promotion, was met with polite disinterest. "That's nice, dear, but did you hear Michael just published another research paper?" 5 years ago, When Mom mentioned they were struggling with the mortgage after Dad's retirement, I quietly started sending money. $3,000 every month transferred to their joint account. I never asked for thanks, never mentioned it during our rare phone calls. It was just something I did, hoping maybe, somehow, it would make me matter to them. Michael's been so generous, Mom would say at family dinners while I sat quietly eating my pot roast. He takes such good care of us. I never corrected her. Even when cousins praised Michael for being the son every parent dreams of, I kept silent. Even when Dad toasted Michael last Christmas, saying, "At least we got one child who understands the meaning of family responsibility," I just raised my glass and smiled. The money I sent had paid off their mortgage, covered Dad's medical bills, funded Mom's kitchen renovation. $180,000 over 5 years. Yet somehow, in their story, Michael was the provider, the savior, the good child. "You know," my cousin Janet had said at last Easter, "it must be hard being Michael's sister. I mean, he's just so accomplished. But hey, we all have our roles to play, right? Michael saves lives and well, you do taxes." She'd laughed. They'd all laughed, and I'd laughed too, even as something inside me finally snapped. That was the night I stopped trying to earn their love and started planning for this moment instead. Michael's voice brought me back to the present. "Family is everything to me," he was saying into the microphone. I almost laughed at the irony. "And I couldn't have done any of this without my amazing parents," Michael continued from the podium. Behind him, a slideshow began, photo after photo of his achievements. Michael in his white coat, Michael receiving awards, Michael with grateful patience, Michael, Michael, Michael. I counted. 47 photos in total. I wasn't in a single one. The family portrait from last Christmas flashed on screen, Mom, Dad, and Michael in front of the fireplace. I remembered that day. I'd been the one taking the photo because someone needs to hold the camera, and Michael should be in the picture. "Your brother really is something special," the man across from me whispered to his wife. "Look at those parents, so proud. You can tell he's the type who takes care of family." If only they knew. The $3,000 I sent every month came with notes in the memo line. "For Mom and Dad, love, Grace." But whenever I called, Mom would gush about Michael's generosity. "Michael made sure we could afford the new roof," she'd told her book club last month. I know because Aunt Linda had relayed it to me, adding, "You're so lucky to have a brother who handles everything." The slideshow continued. Michael's medical school graduation, front and center. My college graduation hadn't even warranted a Facebook post. Michael's first surgery, Michael's research publication, the new car Michael bought, except I'd sent the down payment money that month, explicitly for Dad's birthday gift. "Such a generous son," someone murmured behind me. My phone buzzed, another text from my assistant. "Board wants confirmation on tomorrow's announcement. The St. Mary's funding decision?" I typed back quickly. "Tell them to wait. They'll have their answer tonight." Mom had taken the microphone now, dabbing at her eyes. "We always knew Michael would be special. From the time he was little, he had this drive, this purpose. He's made every sacrifice to get where he is today. He's the son every parent dreams of having." She paused, scanning the crowd, her eyes sliding over me like I was furniture. "Of course, we love both our children. Grace is here too, somewhere in the back. She does accounting." A ripple of polite, sympathetic laughter. The woman next to me patted my hand. "Don't worry, dear. We can't all be stars." Mom continued, "But Michael, oh, Michael has given us everything. The security, the pride, the knowledge that we raised someone who truly makes a difference." My phone lit up with my bank app notification. "Recurring transfer scheduled for tomorrow, $3,000. I canceled it. As Mom handed the microphone back to Michael, I did quick mental math. 5 years, 60 months, $3,000 each month. $180,000 of my money had disappeared into my parents' account, funding their lifestyle while I lived in a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and skipped vacations to ensure I never missed a payment. That money could have been my down payment on a house, could have been my MBA from Wharton, could have been my freedom from the exhausting charade of being the family disappointment while secretly keeping them afloat. But it wasn't just about money. Every dollar I sent had been transformed into another feather in Michael's cap. Michael paid for Mom's surgery. No, I did. Michael covered the mortgage when Dad couldn't work. That was my bonus money. Michael sent us on that cruise for their anniversary. My entire tax refund. The worst part? My mental health was crumbling under the weight of this secret. Therapy twice a week just to deal with the anxiety of being erased from my own family's narrative. Dr. Martinez had asked me last session, "Grace, what would happen if you just told them the truth?" "They wouldn't believe me," I'd answered. And I believed that then. Michael was wrapping up his speech now, his voice carrying that practiced sincerity surgeons perfect. "I've been blessed to be able to provide for my family, to be their rock, their support system. It's what drives me every day." My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't my assistant. It was an email from the Hartfield Corporation Board, marked urgent. "Grace, we need your final signature on the St. Mary's Hospital grant. $500,000 is significant even for us. Please confirm this aligns with our charitable giving strategy." I stared at the email. St. Mary's Hospital, where Michael had just become department chief, where his entire pediatric surgery fellowship program depended on external funding, where he'd been promising the board that he had secured private funding from a reliable source. He'd been so confident when he'd mentioned it at last month's family dinner, not knowing I'd been in the room when he took that call. "Don't worry," he'd told someone on the phone. "The funding is guaranteed. I have connections." The irony was perfect. The disappointment daughter who just did accounting was about to become very, very relevant to Michael's golden future. Another buzz. This time, a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Anderson, this is James Wellington from St. Mary's Board. We haven't met formally, but I believe you're with Hartfield. Would love to thank you personally for considering our proposal." The pieces were falling into place, but nobody else could see it yet. I need to pause here for a moment, because I know some of you watching can relate to this feeling. That soul-crushing experience of giving everything to people who refuse to see your worth. If you've ever been the invisible one, the one whose contributions get credited to someone else, please let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories help me remember I'm not alone in this. Also, if this resonates with you, please hit that like button and share this video. Sometimes the people who need to hear these stories the most are the ones we'd never expect. Now, let me tell you what happened when Michael's celebration took an unexpected turn. Michael had moved into the gratitude portion of his speech, and the energy in the room was electric with admiration. "I want to thank the board for believing in my vision," he said, gesturing to the table of distinguished hospital executives. "Together, we're going to transform pediatric surgery at St. Mary's. We're going to save lives that others might give up on." The crowd erupted in applause. Someone shouted, "Hear, hear!" "The funding we've secured," Michael continued, his confidence radiating, "will allow us to offer 50 full scholarships to promising medical students from underprivileged backgrounds. This isn't just about medicine. It's about changing lives, creating opportunities, building legacies." More applause. Mom was crying now, Dad's arm around her shoulders. They looked so proud, so complete, as if they'd forgotten they had 2 children. "I've personally ensured this funding will continue for the next 5 years," Michael announced. "Because when you've been blessed with success, you give back. You take care of your community, you lift others up." I felt my phone vibrate continuously now. 3 emails from Hartfield's board. 2 missed calls from my assistant. The decision needed to be made tonight. The board was meeting in Tokyo in 6 hours, and they needed my approval before then. A man in an expensive suit suddenly appeared at my table. "Excuse me, are you Grace Anderson?" Before I could answer, Michael's voice boomed through the speakers. "And that's what separates those who merely exist from those who truly live. the willingness to sacrifice for others. Yes, I said quietly to the man. Ms. Anderson from Hartfield? He looked incredulous, glancing between me and the back table where I sat. The CFO? The woman next to me nearly choked on her wine. CFO? But you said you were an accountant. I am, I replied, keeping my voice level. I account for a $12 billion budget. The man extended his hand. James Wellington, St. Mary's Board. I've been trying to reach you all week about the grant proposal. I have to say, I'm surprised to find you here, and at this particular event. It's my brother's celebration, I said simply. His eyes widened. Dr. Anderson is your brother? But he never mentioned. When he said he had secured private funding, we assumed. You assumed what? I asked, though I already knew. Well, that he had connections through his medical network, not that his sister was. He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Michael's voice cut through our conversation. Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about being the person your family can count on. The irony was suffocating. Mom had returned to the microphone, her voice thick with emotion. Before we toast, I just want to say how grateful we are for Michael. He's been our rock, our provider, our pride and joy. She looked directly at the back tables, and for a moment, our eyes met. I just wish all our children could be as successful and generous as Michael. The words hung in the air like a challenge. 200 pairs of eyes followed her gaze to where I sat. The disappointment daughter, the one who just did accounting. Something inside me shifted, not snapped. That had happened months ago. This was different. This was clarity. I stood up. The movement was simple, but in the hushed ballroom, it drew attention. Heads turned. Whispers started. Grace? Mom's voice wavered through the microphone. Sweetie, we're about to toast. I walked forward, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Each step felt like shedding a weight I'd carried for too long. James Wellington followed, looking confused but intrigued. I'd like to say something, I said, my voice carrying clear and steady across the room. Michael's jaw tightened. Grace, this isn't the time. When is the time, Michael? I asked, reaching the front of the room. When you're accepting praise for my sacrifices? When Mom's thanking you for money you never sent? Mom laughed nervously. Grace, what are you talking about? This is Michael's night. You're right, I said, taking the microphone from her surprised hands. It's always Michael's night. Michael's success, Michael's generosity. I turned to face the crowd. But I have a question. Mom, you just called Michael your provider. Tell me, how much money has he actually sent you in the last 5 years? Grace. Dad stood up, his face reddening. This is inappropriate. Is it? I asked. Because I'm genuinely curious. You see, I've been sending $3,000 every month for 5 years. That's $180,000. But somehow Michael gets the credit. Mom's face went pale. What money? We never received any money from you. The room erupted in whispers. Michael stepped forward, trying to take the microphone. Grace is confused. She's obviously. I have the bank records, I said calmly, holding my phone up. Every transfer, every month. Would you like me to show everyone? This is ridiculous, Michael said, but his voice had lost its confident edge. Mom, Dad, tell her. Tell her what? Mom looked genuinely confused. Grace, we haven't gotten a penny from you. Michael handles our finances. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael handles your finances? I repeated slowly, letting the words sink in for everyone listening. You mean Michael has access to your bank account? The joint account where I've been sending money every month? Michael's face had gone from red to pale. This is a family matter. We should discuss this privately. Like we discussed it privately at Christmas when Dad toasted you for paying off their mortgage? I pulled up my banking app, the screen bright and clear. Or privately at Easter when Mom thanked you for the kitchen renovation. I turned the phone toward the crowd. Every month, $3,000. Memo line. For Mom and Dad. Love, Grace. James Wellington stepped forward. Perhaps we should— No, I said firmly. We're doing this now. Mom, check your account. Check it right now. Mom fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking. Dad tried to stop her, but she was already logging in. The room watched in tense silence as her face cycled through confusion, shock, and then horror. The balance, she whispered. There's only $500. That's impossible, Dad snatched the phone. Michael said we had savings. Check the transaction history, I suggested, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Michael lunged for the microphone. This is enough. You're ruining everything with your jealousy. My jealousy? I sidestepped him easily. Let's talk about jealousy, Michael. Let's talk about the investment account you opened in Dad's name. The one you've been transferring their money into. The one you lost almost everything in when your cryptocurrency gamble failed. The crowd gasped. Several board members were on their feet now. That's a lie, Michael shouted, but his voice cracked. Mom was scrolling frantically through her phone. Michael, these transfers, they're going to another account. Your name is on it. Her voice broke. You took it? You took Grace's money? I invested it, Michael protested. For the family, for their future. You lost it, I corrected. 40,000 on cryptocurrency, 30,000 on that startup that went under, 20,000 on options trading you didn't understand. How do you know? Because unlike you, I actually am good with numbers. I turned to the crowd. And speaking of numbers, let me share one more. $500,000. That's the grant amount Hartfield Corporation is supposed to give St. Mary's Hospital for Michael's fellowship program. The hospital board members were all standing now, their faces a mixture of shock and growing anger. Grace, Michael's voice had dropped to a whisper. Please. But I was done protecting him, done being invisible, done being the disappointment. Ms. Anderson, James Wellington's voice cut through the chaos. When you say Hartfield Corporation, you mean the Hartfield Corporation? The one that funds 30% of our research programs? The very same, I confirmed, noticing how several board members were now checking their phones, probably Googling my name. Michael tried to regain control. Whatever position my sister holds, and I'm sure it's been exaggerated, has nothing to do with tonight. This is about my promotion, my achievement. Your achievement built on whose foundation? I asked. Michael, when you told the board you had secured private funding, whose connections were you banking on? I have my own connections. Really? Then why did you call me 17 times last month asking about Hartfield's charitable giving budget? I held up my phone, showing the call log. Why did you specifically ask if I knew anyone in corporate philanthropy? Dr. Patricia Chen, the hospital's CEO, stood up from the board table. Dr. Anderson, is this true? You led us to believe you had independent funding secured. I do. I will. Grace is just— Grace is just what? I turned to face the crowd fully. The family disappointment who chose accounting over medicine? The sister who'll never be as good as her brother? Or maybe, just maybe, Grace is the chief financial officer of a Fortune 500 company who's been quietly funding this family while being told she's worth less than nothing? The woman who'd been sitting next to me earlier gasped. You're the Grace Anderson? The one Forbes called the most powerful female CFO under 40? Mom dropped her phone. It clattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing in the stunned silence. That's impossible, she whispered. You work in accounting. I do work in accounting, I said. I account for $12 billion in assets. I oversee 800 employees. And yes, I approve or deny every single charitable grant over $100,000. Michael's face had gone gray. Grace, we're family. You wouldn't what? Wouldn't treat you the way you've treated me? I pulled out my Hartfield business card, the one with the gold embossing and the title that made Mom's eyes widen. Grace Anderson, Chief Financial Officer. Funny thing about being invisible, Michael. People never see you coming. James Wellington cleared his throat. Ms. Anderson, about the grant. We'll discuss it in a moment, I said, never taking my eyes off my brother. First, I think Michael has something he'd like to tell our parents. Don't you, Michael? The entire room held its breath, waiting. Dr. Patricia Chen stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. Ms. Anderson, I believe we should clarify something for everyone here. You are the signatory on the Hartfield grant proposal for St. Mary's? I am, I confirmed. Final approval rests with me. The same grant, she continued, her eyes fixed on Michael, that Dr. Anderson assured us was guaranteed? The grant that we based our entire fellowship program budget on? Michael tried to interrupt. Dr. Chen, this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? She held up her phone. I just received confirmation from my assistant. Grace Anderson, CFO of Hartfield Corporation, is indeed the final decision-maker for our funding request. She turned to Michael, her expression cold. You told the board your sister was just a paper pusher when we asked about the Anderson name on the preliminary documents. The crowd stirred. Several people were recording on their phones now. That's taken out of context, Michael stammered. Is it? I pulled out a folder from my bag. I'd brought it hoping I wouldn't need it, but knowing I probably would. This is the email chain between you and the hospital board. Would you like me to read the part where you said, and I quote, "My sister has nothing to do with this. She's a low-level accountant who wouldn't understand the complexities of medical research funding?" Dr. Chen's face darkened. You deliberately misled us about your relationship with the funding source? It's not like that, Michael's voice cracked. Grace and I, we have an understanding. We do? I asked. What understanding is that, Michael? The one where I fund the family while you take credit? The one where my achievements are dismissed while yours are celebrated? Or the one where you gamble away my money while telling everyone you're the provider? My phone buzzed. My assistant had sent a simple message. Board is waiting. Need your decision in 30 minutes. Grace. Mom finally spoke, her voice small and broken. Is this all true? The money, the job, everything? Everything except the part where Michael's been taking care of you, I said gently. That's been me. Every month, every bill, every emergency, while you thanked him at every family gathering. Dad sank into his chair. But Michael said he showed us statements. Fake statements, I said, while the real money went into his investment accounts. Check for yourselves. Date by date. Dollar by dollar. The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of Mom's quiet sobbing. 30 minutes, Grace, James Wellington said quietly. The board needs to know about the funding. I nodded. They'll have their answer. But first, I think this family needs to hear some truth. Dad suddenly stood up, his face flushed with anger. But not at Michael, at me. Grace Marie Anderson, his voice boomed across the ballroom. How dare you humiliate your family like this, in public, in front of Michael's colleagues? I stood perfectly still, having expected this. It was always easier to blame me. You're destroying your brother's career out of petty jealousy, Dad continued, walking toward me. So what if we praised Michael more? He's a surgeon. He saves lives. You sit behind a desk playing with spreadsheets. Playing with spreadsheets? I kept my voice level, though inside my heart was racing. Mom joined in, tears streaming down her face. Grace, you've ruined everything. This was Michael's moment, his celebration, and you've turned it into some vendetta. She's always been jealous, Michael added, seeing an opening. Ever since we were kids, she couldn't handle that I was more successful, more accomplished. More accomplished? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're right, Michael. You are more accomplished. You've accomplished stealing $180,000. You've accomplished lying to your parents for 5 years. You've accomplished risking your entire department's funding on a lie. You vindictive little... Dad stepped closer, his finger pointing at my face. You will never be half the person your brother is. Never. At least he had the ambition to become something meaningful. The crowd gasped at his harshness, but Dad wasn't done. You think your money makes you important? It doesn't. Michael has prestige, respect, purpose. You have what? A fancy title at some corporation nobody cares about? He turned to the crowd. My daughter is trying to destroy her own brother because she can't stand living in his shadow. Living in his shadow? I remained calm, though I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on us. Dad, I haven't lived in Michael's shadow. I've been funding it. Enough! Mom shrieked. Grace, apologize to your brother right now. Apologize to everyone here for this tantrum. A tantrum? Dr. Chen interjected. Mrs. Anderson, your daughter has just revealed potential fraud and misrepresentation that could affect millions in funding. Stay out of our family business, Mom snapped at her, then turned back to me. You've embarrassed us enough. Michael made a mistake with investments. So what? He was trying to help. Help himself, someone muttered from the crowd. Dad's face was purple now. Get out, Grace. Leave. You're no daughter of mine if you can't support your brother. Support him? I held up my phone. I've been supporting all of you, and this is what I get? Being called jealous? Vindictive? A disappointment? Because that's what you are, Dad shouted. A disappointment. I need to stop here because I know that word, disappointment, has been weaponized against so many of you too. If you've ever stood up to family members who took advantage of you, only to be called selfish or vindictive, please leave a comment saying, I understand. Your stories give others courage to set their own boundaries. And if you're finding value in this story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. What happened next changed everything, not just for me, but for Michael's entire career. Let me show you what real power looks like when it's been underestimated for too long. Michael seized the moment, grabbing the microphone from my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. My sister has been struggling with some mental health issues, the ultimate gaslighting. Several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. She's been in therapy, he continued, his voice dripping with fake concern. Delusions of grandeur, fantasies about being more successful than she is. We've tried to help her, but as you can see... Delusions? I asked calmly. Dr. Chen, would you mind Googling Grace Anderson Hartfield CFO? I already did, she replied, holding up her tablet. Your picture is right here, Forbes article from last month. Michael's face twitched. That must be a different Grace Anderson. With the same face? Someone called out from the crowd, causing nervous laughter. But Michael wasn't done. He turned to the audience, playing the wounded brother perfectly. Even if my sister has achieved some success, which I'm happy for, truly, does that give her the right to attack me? To try to destroy everything I've worked for? Everything you've worked for? I asked. Or everything I've paid for? See? Michael addressed the crowd. This jealousy, this need to claim credit for my achievements. Yes, Grace sent some money to our parents, but I'm the one who managed it, invested it, tried to grow it for their future. Lost it, I corrected. You lost 90% of it. I took calculated risks. With my money. Without my permission. Without even telling them it was from me. Mom stepped between us, her face streaked with mascara. Grace, please, just go. You've done enough damage. Michael's right. You need help. This obsession with getting credit, with being seen, it's not healthy. Not healthy? I looked at her in disbelief. What's not healthy is praising one child while erasing the other. What's not healthy is taking someone's financial support while denying they exist. You exist, Mom cried. We acknowledge you exist. Isn't that enough? The room went silent at that. Even Michael looked shocked at her words. No, Mom, I said quietly. Existing isn't enough. I deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be acknowledged for who I really am, not the failure you've imagined me to be. Then prove it, Michael challenged, sensing the crowd's sympathy shifting. If you're really this powerful CFO, if you really control our funding, then make the call, right here, Right now, show everyone who you really are, or admit you're just a bitter sister trying to steal my spotlight. The entire room held its breath. 200 people waited to see if I was who I claimed to be. I smiled and pulled out my phone. I dialed the number on speaker. The room was so quiet you could hear the ringtone echoing off the marble walls. Grace? My assistant's voice filled the ballroom. The board is assembled in Tokyo. They're waiting for your decision on the St. Mary's Hospital grant. Thank you, Jennifer. Can you patch me through to Mr. Yamamoto? Of course. One moment. Michael's face had gone white. The hospital board members were all on their feet now, moving closer to hear better. A new voice came through, deep and authoritative. Grace, we've been waiting. The $500,000 grant to St. Mary's. Do we proceed? Mr. Yamamoto, I'm actually at St. Mary's event right now. I'm putting you on speaker. Is that acceptable? Of course. Good evening, everyone. I'm Takeshi Yamamoto, chairman of Hartfield Corporation's board. Dr. Chen gasped. Several people started recording. Mr. Yamamoto, I said clearly, before we discuss the grant, can you please confirm my position for the people here? Certainly. Grace Anderson has been our chief financial officer for 3 years. She oversees all financial operations and has final authority on all charitable giving exceeding $100,000. I must say, Grace, we're very fortunate to have someone of your caliber. That restructuring you led last year saved us $40 million. Mom sank into a chair. Dad's mouth hung open. Thank you, Mr. Yamamoto. Now, regarding the St. Mary's grant— Wait! Michael lunged forward. Grace, please, let's discuss this privately, as family. As family? I turned to him. Like when you discussed taking my money as family. Like when you told everyone you were the provider as family. The grant, Grace? Mr. Yamamoto's voice cut through. I looked directly at Michael, then at my parents, then at the hospital board. Mr. Yamamoto, I'm denying the St. Mary's Hospital grant application. The room erupted. Board members shouting, Michael pleading, Mom sobbing. However, I continued, raising my voice, I'm approving a $500,000 grant to establish the Anderson Foundation for Accounting Excellence, providing full scholarships for low-income students pursuing accounting and finance degrees. Excellent choice, Mr. Yamamoto replied. Shall we designate the first scholarship in your name? No, I said, looking at my parents. Call it the Invisible Achievement Scholarship. For students whose contributions have been overlooked but whose impact is undeniable. Very well. Jennifer will send the paperwork within the hour. Oh, and Grace, the board wanted me to remind you about next week's announcement. What announcement? Dr. Chen asked, unable to help herself. Grace is being promoted to President of Global Operations. She'll be the youngest person to ever hold that position in our company's history. Congratulations again, Grace. The line went dead. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Michael fell back against the podium. You just cost the hospital $500,000. No, Michael, I said quietly. You did. When you lied about having it secured. When you banked on a relationship you'd spent years destroying. This is insane, Michael shouted, his composure finally cracking completely. You're destroying healthcare funding out of spite. Spite? I pulled out a folder I'd been carrying all evening. Let's talk about destruction, Michael. Mom, Dad, you need to see this. I handed them the printed bank statements I'd prepared, highlighting every transfer, every withdrawal, every devastating loss. January 2020, I read aloud. $3,000 from Grace, transferred to checking. Same day, $3,000 moved to investment account in Michael's name. February 2020, same pattern. March, April, May, every single month for 5 years. Mom's hands shook as she followed the highlighted lines. Michael, these are all going to your account? It was for investments, for your future, Michael protested. Then where is it? Dad demanded, his anger finally turning toward the right person. Where's the money? I flipped to another page. Cryptocurrency losses, 42,000. Failed startup investment, 33,000. Day trading losses, 58,000. Luxury car lease in Michael's name, 40,000. I looked up. That Porsche you drive, Michael? That's not from your surgeon salary. That's my money. Money I sent for Mom and Dad. The crowd was murmuring now, phones out, the scandal too juicy to ignore. But the worst part, I continued, is this. I showed them the final statement. December last year, you withdrew 50,000 claiming it was for Mom's emergency surgery. Mom, did you have surgery? No, she whispered, staring at Michael in horror. I haven't been to the hospital in 2 years. That 50,000 went to cover your gambling debts, didn't it, Michael? I turned to the hospital board. Dr. Chen, did you know your new department chief has a gambling problem? 3 visits to rehab in the past 2 years? Dr. Chen's face was stone. Dr. Anderson, is this true? Michael's silence was answer enough. $180,000, I said, letting the number hang in the air. Every penny I sent to help my parents, stolen by the son they worship, the son who saves lives, the son who's everything I could never be. How could you? Mom's voice was broken, barely a whisper. Michael, how could you? I was trying to multiply it, make it grow, for all of us. Michael's excuses sounded hollow even to him. No, I said firmly. You were feeding your addiction, your ego, your need to be the golden child without actually earning it. James Wellington cleared his throat. Dr. Anderson, the board will need to discuss this immediately. Misappropriation of funds, even personal funds, combined with undisclosed gambling issues. This is a family matter, Michael shouted desperately. Not anymore, Dr. Chen said coldly. You made it a professional matter when you lied about the funding source, when you potentially exposed this hospital to fraud liability. I'll fix it. I'll find other funding. With what credibility, she asked. Who would trust you now? The weight of what he'd lost was finally hitting Michael. His career, his reputation, his carefully constructed image, all crumbling in front of 200 witnesses. I turned back to the room, my voice carrying clearly to every corner. I want to be very clear about what happens next. Michael started to speak, but I held up my hand. You've talked enough, Michael. For years, you've controlled the narrative. Now it's my turn. I addressed Dr. Chen and the board directly. The Hartfield Corporation grant to St. Mary's is officially declined. However, we're not vindictive. You have 30 days to submit a new application with a different project lead for a different program. We're particularly interested in nursing scholarships and mental health initiatives. That's very generous, Dr. Chen said carefully. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. As for the Anderson Foundation for Accounting Excellence, I continued, it will launch next month with full scholarships for 100 students from low-income families. Each scholarship covers tuition, books, and living expenses. 100? Someone gasped. That's millions of dollars. 5 million to be exact, I confirmed. My personal contribution, not Hartfield's, because unlike some people, I actually can afford to be generous. Michael slumped against the wall. You're ruining me. No, Michael, you ruined yourself. I'm just refusing to hide it anymore. I turned to my parents. As for you two, the monthly transfers stop immediately. If you need financial help, you can ask me directly. But I want receipts, transparency, and acknowledgement of where it's coming from. Grace, Mom started, tears streaming. We didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected. It was easier to believe Michael was perfect than to acknowledge I existed. That's not true, Dad protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Then tell me, I challenged, without looking at your phone, what's my actual job title? Where do I live? What's my middle name? The silence was damning. They didn't know. After 32 years, they didn't know basic facts about their own daughter. Your son has put you in significant debt, I said more gently. He's taken out loans in your name, credit cards you don't know about. You're probably looking at bankruptcy unless someone helps. Will you? Mom asked desperately. Will you help us? I'll pay for a financial advisor and a lawyer, I said. They'll help you understand the full extent of Michael's deception and your options. But I won't just hand over more money for Michael to steal or for you to credit to him. That's fair, Dad said quietly, the fight gone out of him. One more thing, I added, pulling out my business card. When you're ready to have a real relationship with your actual daughter, not the disappointment you invented, call me. But I won't accept anything less than genuine respect and acknowledgement. I placed the card on the table in front of them. Grace Anderson, Chief Financial Officer, soon to be President of Global Operations. The title they'd never bothered to learn. Before I leave, I said, addressing the room one final time, I want to make something crystal clear. This isn't about revenge. This is about truth and boundaries. I looked at Michael, who couldn't meet my eyes. Michael, you're a talented surgeon. That's real. That's earned. But it doesn't give you the right to steal from me or take credit for my sacrifices. Then to my parents, I love you. That's why I sent the money in the first place. But love without respect is just obligation, and I'm done with obligations that only flow one way. Grace, Michael finally spoke, his voice hoarse. What am I supposed to do? My career is over. Your career is damaged, I corrected. Whether it's over depends on you. Take responsibility. Get help for your gambling. Make amends. Real amends, not just words. Maybe in time you can rebuild. And us? Mom asked, clutching Dad's hand. How do we fix this? Start by seeing me, I said simply. Not the daughter you wish you had, or the disappointment you think I am, but me, Grace Anderson, CFO, soon to be president, philanthropist, your daughter who loved you enough to support you even when you couldn't love me back. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Ms. Anderson, I want to apologize on behalf of St. Mary's. We should have done better due diligence. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But Michael is convincing. He convinced my parents for years. He almost convinced me that I was worth less than him. Almost? James Wellington asked. Almost. But numbers don't lie, even when families do. I picked up my purse. My assistant will be in touch about future grant opportunities, ones that don't involve my brother. As I walked toward the exit, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. Some looked at me with admiration, others with shock, a few with disapproval. I didn't care about any of it. Grace, Mom called out, please don't leave like this. I stopped at the doorway, turning back one last time. I've been leaving family gatherings feeling worthless for 10 years. This is the first time I'm leaving with my dignity intact. We're your family, Dad pleaded. Yes, I acknowledged. But family isn't a free pass to treat someone as less than. It's not an excuse for favoritism, theft, or erasure. Family should mean more respect, not less. When will we see you again? Mom asked. When you can introduce me to someone without mentioning Michael. When you can be proud of who I am, not disappointed in who I'm not. When you can see that your daughter, who just does accounting, is worth knowing. With that, I walked out, my heels clicking confidently against the marble, leaving behind 200 witnesses to the truth and a family that would have to rebuild from the foundation up. I hadn't even reached my car when my phone started buzzing with messages. The first was from Dr. Chen. Emergency board meeting in 1 hour. Michael's position under review. The second was from James Wellington. 50 medical students affected by funding loss. Board demanding answers. But it was the third message that stopped me cold. It was from Michael's wife, Sarah, the one person in the family who'd always been kind to me. Grace, I'm leaving him. This wasn't the first time. He remortgaged our house without telling me. Our kids' college funds are gone. I'm so sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I sat in my car in this parking garage, watching through my phone as the disaster unfolded in real time. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation. Anderson's scandal was already trending locally. The video of Michael admitting to taking the money had been shared over 1,000 times in 20 minutes. My phone rang. It was Jennifer, my assistant. Grace, 3 board members from St. Mary's have called asking if you'd consider a position on their board. They want to rebuild with integrity, they said. Tell them no, I said. I don't mix family drama with professional obligations. Also, Jennifer continued, a reporter from the Tribune called. They want a statement about the scholarship program. Send them the press release we prepared. Nothing about tonight's events. Another call came through. Dr. Chen. I answered. Ms. Anderson, I'm sorry to bother you, but the board has voted. Michael's been placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. We've also discovered he misrepresented other funding sources. This is bigger than just your family's situation. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want Michael completely destroyed. The board wanted me to ask, would Hartfield reconsider if we restructured the entire program? Submit a new proposal, different leadership, transparent oversight, clear accountability. We'll review it like any other application. Thank you. And Grace, what you did tonight took incredible courage. After I hung up, I checked my parents' joint account. I still had view-only access from when I'd set up the automatic transfers. The balance was $487. 5 years of my support gone. Another text from Sarah. The house is in foreclosure. He hid the notices. 3 months behind. Can you recommend a lawyer? I sent her 3 names, the best in the city. Michael had lost more than just face tonight. His career was suspended, possibly over. His marriage was ending. His reputation was destroyed. And the 50 medical students depending on that scholarship would have to scramble for alternatives. All because he'd been too proud to let his disappointment sister get credit for her own generosity. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was hollow, defeated. Grace, we need your help. I'd been expecting this call. What did the lawyer find? $200,000 in debt. Michael took out loans, credit cards, even a second mortgage on the house in Dad's name. We have to sell the house, and it still won't cover everything. I stayed silent, letting her continue. The bank called this morning. We have 30 days before foreclosure proceedings start. Grace will lose everything, the house we've lived in for 35 years. Where's Michael? I asked. We don't know. Sarah kicked him out. He's not answering our calls. She paused. The hospital contacted us. He's been terminated. Turns out he'd been taking pharmaceutical samples and selling them. They found evidence going back 2 years. This was worse than I'd imagined. Mom, that's a federal crime. We know. The FBI might get involved. Her voice broke. Our son, our brilliant surgeon son, is going to prison. And you want me to fix it, I said, not a question but a statement. You're the only one who can. Please, Grace, we're desperate. I offered you a lawyer and financial advisor. Have you met with them? Yes. They said bankruptcy is our only option unless someone pays off the debts immediately. And you want me to pay $200,000 to clean up Michael's mess. Again. We're your parents. Dad's voice came through. They'd put me on speaker. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means everything to me, I said, which is why this hurts so much. For 5 years, I sent you money out of love. Michael stole it out of greed, and you celebrated him while dismissing me. We didn't know. Because you didn't want to know. It was easier to believe Michael's lies than to acknowledge my contributions. We were wrong, Mom admitted. We see that now. But Grace, we're 62 and 65. We can't start over with nothing. I thought about it for a long moment. I'll make you a deal. I'll pay off enough debt to save the house. Not all of it, just the house. In exchange, you go to family therapy with me. Weekly sessions for 6 months minimum. Therapy? Dad sounded offended. Yes, we need professional help to rebuild this relationship. And you need to understand why you valued one child over another so completely that you couldn't see the truth in front of you. What about Michael? Mom asked. Michael's on his own. He's a grown man who made criminal choices. I won't enable him anymore, and neither should you. There was a long pause. Finally, Mom said, "We'll do it. The therapy. Whatever it takes." "I'll have the lawyer contact you tomorrow," I said. "And Mom, this is the last time I clean up Michael's mess. The very last time." 6 months later, I stood at the podium at the Hartfield Corporation annual gala, looking out at a very different audience than the one at Michael's promotion party. These were business leaders, philanthropists, and, in the front row, 100 scholarship recipients from the Anderson Foundation for Accounting Excellence. When I created this foundation, I began, people asked why accounting? Why not something more glamorous, more prestigious? The answer is simple: because accountants are the invisible backbone of every organization. We see everything, we make everything possible, but we rarely get the credit. The scholarship recipients applauded enthusiastically. These were kids who reminded me of myself, brilliant but overlooked, capable but underestimated. 6 months ago, I learned the cost of being invisible in my own family, but I also learned the power of finally being seen. I looked toward the side of the room where my parents sat. They'd come, as promised, to every therapy session. It wasn't fixed, might never be completely, but it was better. Each of you, I continued, addressing the students, has been chosen not just for your academic achievement, but for your persistence in the face of being undervalued. You're the ones told you're just good with numbers, just support staff, just accountants. But you're the ones who'll run the world from behind the scenes. After my speech, my parents approached. Dad was holding a frame. "Grace," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "we wanted to give you this." It was a photo from my college graduation, one I didn't even know existed. I was throwing my cap in the air, laughing, my honors cords visible. They'd had it professionally restored and framed. "We found it in a box in the attic," Mom explained. "Along with all your report cards, your awards, your acceptance letters. We kept everything, Grace. We forgot to look at it." "How's Michael?" I asked, because despite everything, I needed to know. "He's in rehab," Dad said quietly. "Court ordered. He pled guilty to the pharmaceutical theft. 18 months probation if he completes treatment." "Sarah and the kids?" "Living with her parents. She filed for divorce." Mom sighed. "We see the kids once a week. We tell them their Aunt Grace is helping with their college funds." Which I was. It wasn't their fault their father was a criminal. "Thank you for saving the house," Dad said suddenly. "And for making us do therapy. Dr. Martinez says we have golden child syndrome. We're working on it." I smiled slightly. "I know, she tells me." "You have the same therapist?" Mom looked surprised. "For 3 years now. She's the one who helped me find the courage to stand up at Michael's party." We stood there, the three of us, no longer the family we'd been, but maybe, possibly, becoming the family we could be. Looking back now, a year after that confrontation, I've learned something crucial. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They create the space for real relationships to grow, ones based on mutual respect rather than obligation. My parents and I have dinner once a month now. They ask about my work and they actually listen to the answer. They've stopped comparing me to Michael, who's slowly rebuilding his life as a general practitioner in a small clinic. He and I haven't spoken since that night, but Sarah tells me he's genuinely trying to change. The 100 students in my scholarship program often email me their successes: internships landed, job offers received, dreams pursued despite being told they were just accountants. They're learning earlier than I did that your worth isn't determined by other people's inability to see it. If you're the invisible one in your family, the one whose contributions go unnoticed while others get the glory, know this: your value exists whether they acknowledge it or not. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to stop enabling their blindness and start demanding to be seen. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to set hard boundaries with family who couldn't see your worth, please share your experience in the comments below. You're not alone, and your story might help someone else find their courage. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And remember, being seen and valued isn't a privilege you have to earn. It's a basic right, especially from the people who claim to love you. Until next time, this is Grace, reminding you that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to remain invisible.